Hello, good evening. Sandy can't be here tonight. Filling in for the live. It's Dale, and been wanting to do this, so I guess it's time to just jump on in. So those that are joining, thank you very much for stopping on by. If someone can comment just to see if I can check if these are coming through, I really appreciate that. Great. Thank you, Cheryl. All right, so tonight I don't do a whole lot of coloring. I am in the process of learning, but what I do know how to do is use oxides. So I do all the stencil designs and I do a lot of testing, so I've gotten good over time. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to build a couple different backgrounds that you can use for cards. And so the first one we're going to go ahead and do is create something that's undersea. I know that we have a under the sea ephemera, and I thought it was just like if I was going to make a card, and because I don't color, the ephemera would be a great piece to go with it. So it's an easy piece to bring all together that hopefully will look cool. So let's get this started. So I'm using a regular A2 size card, and just to kind of lay out what we're going to do is that we're going to have a little sand piece right here, and then we're going to go from a light to a dark. So it's kind of thinking of somewhat shallow water. So you have kind of like the light coming from the top, coming down, transition, and then we'll have a transition, a final watercolor layer, and then the sand, and then after that, then you can go ahead and build in whatever pieces you want with artwork you want. But there's one little thing that I tried out that I thought was really cool that I'm going to share with y'all after we get the scene built. So, as I was saying, the first part of our water, we're going to go from the top, extending down a little bit past halfway. And we're going to start this off with some tumbled glass. Hey, Sandy. So let's get some color laid down here. And if you don't get it really smooth, we're not worried about it at this point. We're just trying to get a good coverage and extend our layers down. And if it's a little bit splotchy, that works out just great because, I mean, water is not always a uniform color when we're looking at it from either underwater or underneath. You just have different variations because we have that light coming through. So it's just get whatever coverage you're comfortable with. I'm going to fill in a few of these here. So I kind of make it look a little bit like a cloudy day. So we extended on our first piece. Our second piece is we're going to go from the bottom up with some Mermaid Lagoon. So as the light comes down, it dissipates, and it slowly, gradually gets darker and darker. With this, I loaded my brush up. I don't want it to go in heavy, so I'm going to go ahead and wipe a little bit off on the table and then start the blending process. So we'll just start working that color in here. Got a little smudge right there. Since the brush is still loaded with color, it's going to give us some issues trying to smooth that out. What I like doing is using a handy makeup sponge. And then we can get in there with a little spot and just slightly work it out so we don't add any more color. All right, let's get down a little bit more coverage here. A little bit darker down here at the bottom because that will be our lowest light level. Okay. Our next piece with this is going to be cracked pistachio. So this is what I'm going to use to blend in these two layers, since I really didn't do any kind of blending. So this will just give kind of like the color change a little bit. Adds a little bit of character to it. So I'm going to go coloring in this piece here, going in light, just slowly working in the color. Start trying to work in a good smooth translation. So once I get these colors down, this color down, and blend it out, then I'll go back with the other two colors and just continue the blend. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So now we will jump back to the tumbler glass. And work that in, lightening up that top part of the green to give us a good fade on that transition. And depending upon how much you want that fade will determine how much you have to work this. So I want this good and light. Bring it all the way down. Okay, I got a good transition there. Now I have to go the opposite way. Thin that out a little bit and start bringing this up. This one we're going to have to work in a little bit more. There we go. And then our final piece, since I'm happy with that, is to bring back the cracked pistachio and work that back down. So we're just slowly working in layers and just working the colors back and forth, getting a good even blend to it. So you have a nice transition going on overall. Last time here, soften up this bottom edge. Actually, we will go with a small amount of tumbled glass to lighten that up. Okay. Clean up my area real quick. The piece right here is going to be our sand. This is something you could have did first, could did last. It really depends on your final effect. I didn't want to go necessarily really hard on a line here, but we will go ahead and create a quick mask for it. So, go old school, just grab a scrap piece of paper, and we will go ahead and cut out just a simple wavy line, anything you want. All right, and of course I don't make it long enough, but no big deal. We will work with it. All right, so now I have my mask going on. We will bring in a little bit of, what do we have? Fossilized amber. So this is going to just give us a simple yellow base to start out with our sand layer. And it's a nice bright color because I'm having to interact a little bit with the blue that came down, since I didn't do initially do this. So I want to give a nice bright base for the other layers to sit on. So if I was to put the other colors down, you have the blending that's going to go on with the blue. And so if I was going to lay down any browns, it's going to look muddyish. And so here we're just putting down a nice bright layer. So the other layers that I'm going to put on top for the brown are going to exhibit a little bit more truer color because of the lightness that we have. And then next is some brush corduroy. Now we're getting into what we want our sand to look like. Clean off this brush a little bit. Okay. Put our mask back on. We're going to go slightly above to blend into that blue. We're going to go over. So now we're going to just go over this because we want to smudge it a little bit. Just to be kind of blurry. So think of kind of like the sand is shifting with the tides. And then we will go with a slight bit of pumice stone. We're just going to go over this lightly. So this is just adding a little, it's just deepening the brown a little bit and creating a little bit of variation. You can't quite see it on camera, but you can see where it's picking up on the paper that I'm using, some of the tooth on it. and darkening it. So it gives it a little bit of texture there. And if you're here making something where if you didn't do the sand and you wanted to do another layer, you can get into where you're using chipped sapphire and going down to your bottom layer, kind of like you're getting the bottom piece of your darkness. So we're just going to do a little bit of that just on the sides. Okay, so this is what I have for an underwater scene. Let me go back a little bit more with this tumble glass. Just push that up. I've noticed while I've gone through working with the oxides is that when you start building up the ink layers on your paper, when you start adding more layers, you could see it sitting there. And so you do have the ability to push it some to kind of control a little bit of the movement instead of just necessarily just going swirling around. You can work that excess ink up and start smoothing everything out. And then I usually kind of wipe my brush off a little bit and then go back into the circular blending. All right. So with our little underwater scene, then you can go on with your card making. I'm not going to be making a card, but I have some ephemera here just to show a little bit of what you can do. I mean, if you got images or want to color them in or put stuff down, but here I just have something if I want to do something quick and simple. Take you about 10 minutes to do the cards so it has a little bit of flavor to it, and then go ahead and lay down some ephemera, slap on a sentiment, and you have yourself a makings of a cute little undersea. Now, while I was playing around, practicing a little bit of what I wanted to do and the different effects I want, one of the things that I thought was cool that I've seen is where you have the light part, but then you have kind of like the light shining through, rays of light coming through. And I was trying to figure out, I was like, all right, with oxides, how am I going to go about achieving that? And it was actually pretty easy with Lost Shadow. This was a welcome surprise because I thought this was going to be a little rough trying to come through the layers of the color. I've seen a couple different videos where someone was using a stencil and they had the stencil laid down, and of course they colored it in, then your areas of rays of sunlight were white, and so as you laid your color over top, they of course would be lighter because they're showing it on the white, and then darker as it goes against the color that you brought in from the stencil. But I didn't want to create a stencil. I wanted to be able to show by hand how you can do this. So from our little sand form, we're just going to use the edge here. And so we are going to determine, so I want to have like 3 rays of light. So I want light coming through here, and through here. And so we're going to determine where our edge is. So I'm going to bring it right here. So we have our guide, and it's going to give us the hard edge we want. So I'm going to load the brush more on the tip or the top of the brush. I want to load that area in because I want to use that to control how I'm getting everything in. I'm just going to swipe it in. And then we're going to do the second piece of it. So when I was trying this, I didn't have the rubber mat and I was just moving my paper all around. So this is a little bit more difficult, but we'll get it done. So again, we're just using the tip of the brush and running it up. And then we'll go through and just blend it out. And then we will determine our second ray. So we are going to come straight down like this. We're going to angle over, run it up, and then come to the other side, define our edge, about right there. And then for our last ray, come in here. Just work in that lost shadow. And then lay down our second piece. And you can do it the hard way where you just use a straight edge, or if you want, you can actually cut out kind of a long trapezoid type of long trapezoid cutout to make it easier. Then you don't have to worry about doing all the flipping. You can just lay it down and do your coloring. So we'll bring that down, soften out these edges a bit. And there we have a simple underwater scene, and then we added in the, let me get a good angle for you. Adding in the light rays for it, which you can make more if you want, or broad, or different kind of pieces, just to bring life to the scene, and then add all your additional pieces. All right, so this is background number one. And I have a second background that I'm going to do. So the second one is going to be, so we did underwater. Now we're going to do outer space. So as I was playing around with different ways to do a space scene, one of the things I always like is looking at the nebula in space, and different colors, these nebula clouds and stuff like that. So I was trying to do a little bit of recreating that somewhat. So this is an attempt I did. I like it, but it wasn't really getting at what I wanted. But it's definitely one of those where if you layer down your colors, you can get some really cool effects. So just a quick breakdown of how I did this is that I took like Festive Berries. Festive Berries is kind of a mid-range red color. It's bright, leaning a little bit more to the pinkish side. And I laid it down in this path like this first. So I wanted to get a really good bright base. I left the rest white, and then I layered on some seedless preserves and then wilted violet on top, slowly working the color in and then blending it out onto the sides here, because I knew that I was going to be adding the black in next. And so the next piece was adding the black, and then with the black, I don't like going just all black, so I add in the chip sapphire and then also more the wilted violet to layer that in to get a good tone of black. So it's not true, it's not like a deep charcoal black. And then when you're finished, you can go ahead and spritz with water if you want, because these are oxides, they will react with the water, or you can put like white flecks on it to give stars and stuff like that. But what I'm going to demonstrate is something I've done a year ago, and I really like the look of it, and I've not recreated it. So we are going to create a space scene using the Lunar stencil and the night sky stencil. So with our Lunar stencil, we're only going to use a portion of this. So I'm going to go ahead and see what I'm going to do on framing my scene. So what I want is that I want to have a good expansive space, and what I'm envisioning is that we are going to create a portion here of a planet, and then we're going to put a sun right here coming over the edge, cresting over the planet. So we're going to have an area of more bright right here, and then we're going to be fading in black because this piece of this section of the planet hasn't seen sun yet, so it's in nighttime. So we're just seeing how far we want to go, because thinking about how you want to lay a scene down with using your stencils is what elements do you want to add into it, and how much space do you have for a sentiment, because if you're doing something really cool, you don't want to put anything on top of it. This, I would envision the card is itself going to be more the presentation and not many additives other than the sentiment. So we're going to put this, so here we have the center point, and then we're going to have a moon or the sun coming up right here. So we're going to have at least the bottom half is going to be devoted to bringing this piece together. Then you have the top half that you can put a sentiment in there, and then a little bit of embellishments. So we're going to just start off right there. And then we're going to be using the nighttime stencil, because what we want is just this right here. Or we can actually use this. But I think this will be more the size I want, because the other piece we need is the mask. So we need to determine where we want the sun to be crusting over. So I want to be crusting over right there. So put that down. And we'll put these off to the side and start out with a little bit of black soot. So now we're going to go ahead and we're masking off all of our area that we want to build our scene with, and the rest is just going to be a nighttime scene. So we're going to be seeing in space. So I'm going to start laying down the black soot. Like I was saying before in the other space example, I don't like my sky to be all black soot, because it just looks a little bit too, I don't know, to me, artificial. Because we do see, I mean, we see the blackness, expansive space, but you have the influence of the stars and your background colors, and in space we just have different kind of pieces going together. So that's why I like to start with a black soot, but then to give it a little bit more texture, to layer on the purples and the blues to really deepen it. Plus it works better with filling in the black than trying to keep on going over and over again. And you're really not worried about perfect coverage, because you want it to be spotty, you want dark, you want light areas, because that's what you're going to use to fill in with your other colors. And then once you have your other colors laid down, Then we can go ahead and go back over it with the black soot to blend it all together and bring the space to its final piece that you're looking for. So here we're going to now add in some blues. And the blue and the purple, when you layer these on top and you get a good coverage overall with your with the black soot, the purple, and the blue. And I always like using a nice dark blue for this because they blend really well for a final black color. Because I find that the black soot, it says it's black, but it feels more of a, I guess you'd describe it more of a warm black or a cool black, because it tends a little bit more to the gray side. We have that. And then wilted violet. Another purple that I find really good for nighttime scene, to make a nighttime sky, is Villainous Potion. That is a really dark, rich purple. Now I'm leaving the area around the mask. I'm not going completely into it. I'm trying not to get a harsh line on this. I'm leaving a little bit around it because I have plans for that. I don't want it to be completely black, because then what I'm going to do with that, I need to have a little bit of that white showing so the color will come through. Okay, so we're getting good coverage here. We're getting this to a point what we like. And now we can go back to the black soot. Probably don't even have to get any more ink. We have enough on there. And now we're just really tying all the colors together. Give them a good blend so they mix and you don't have any that are really truly standing out. Okay, so we're good at that point. So next step on is to start creating our planet. So we have the planet here. What I want is to have a slight little bit of offset here. I want this little line of white available to me because we're going to bring that in as an element of the sun. And I'll explain what I'm going to be doing with that. So we are ready to go. So we get a nice blue ocean for this planet. And this could be any planet. It is kind of somewhat like an Earth, so we're just going to go with a bluish ocean here. Tiny bit of Mermaid Lagoon, since we have it available. Deepen that up. All right. And if you wanted to, you didn't have to use the second piece. If you wanted to just layer different colors to get a different pattern, I mean, that's perfectly fine. I mean, it's your your vision. One thing I like about doing this is that, like, in my mind, I see the card and I see the story that I'm trying to convey with the card. And then it's just working through the process of making that story come together. So now we're going to lay down a little bit of this green, create some landmass. So we have a bit of landmass going on. Let's darken that up with some corduroy. So we don't have everything just as a kind of forest. Just rough that in. And then go back over it to blend the colors. Just muddy it up. All right, there we go. Now our next piece is we need our mask. Make sure I don't use the piece that has don't use the area that I've colored on. So we're going to cover our mask, our planet, because we don't want to overextend the sun. So we're going to go slightly over the edge, capturing a little bit of that black, because we want it to blend in a little bit. Got our fossilized amber here. And working that in. We're going to have a nice bright sun coming over the horizon. Now we can go through and work around that to give the glow of the sun. Then we'll extend down here a little bit, fill in that white area. So this is what we wanted to fill in. So as the sun's cresting over the planet, it creates a kind of like a coronal effect. So the light is cresting over, it's shining down. So we can put a little bit of yellow down into this, lightening it up, and the light spreading across the planet slowly. So we will go ahead and use the excess of ink on here for the yellow, bring it around, and then go with the black soot and bring it around the bottom part of the planet so we can darken it up. So we have the contrast between the light and the dark for nighttime and daytime. So for the coronal effect going around the planet, I can't quite get everything you need with the oxides. So I am bringing in some color pencils to kind of fine tune it. And the same thing around here. So I'm going to do a little bit of some coloring here. So I'm going to do a little bit of light here. darker one blending in. And then we'll lighten it up a little bit. So we can bring this down a little bit more. Okay, and now we can go ahead and just bring this around the sun because we want to extend that coloring out. I'm just going to go ahead and work on a base here, going from light to dark. Just giving a little bit of shine to it, just the light radiating from the sun. Just blend it all together, just lightly doing it. We don't want a whole lot of color in here, just enough to show, and then do a quick blending. And you could still, if you didn't have color pencils, you could still do this with your ink. It's just here, get it on your tip, or if you have a smaller blending brush, you could do the same thing. And I would do it with kind of layering your colors where you want to lay down one that's not as bright as this, just so you can start getting along this edge and make it slightly darker, and just work it and bring out as much radiance that you want. All right, and that is our sunrise. And give it whatever character you want to it. I mean, you could have the sun out here, we can have a moon. It's whatever you're looking at. I mean, one of the things that I really enjoy about all this is just the creativity that you have. You have so much latitude for artistic expression. I mean, I heard Sandy say many times, it's just paper. I mean, if you don't like it, you could toss it or make it something else, but at least, if anything, each step is something that teaches you how to do something that you know what not to do next time, or it may teach you something that's different that you can apply. See, Sandy's new stamp would look awesome on this background. Yeah, and I didn't have any ephemera for it available yet, which I wish I did. And I had a sheet, I just didn't have time to go ahead and set up the laser cutter to take care of a sheet. But let's see. Like with the ephemera pieces, I think she did this. I think these are the stencils. Sandy made the samples of these on paper, then cut them out, and then used them as a different, like a little ephemera pieces. So yeah, you can put the moon in there. If we had little aliens, you can put the aliens in there. Just little things to bring the image to life. Let's see. Just going through her So Sandy went ahead and used the sentiment stencil and made a bunch of pre-made sentiments. So I'm just pulling these out just to throw around, just to give different ideas and visualize what you can have as a final piece. If we had the alien spaceships, you could put that here. If where you had a like an astronaut from a stamp set, then you can have them floating out in space. Just whatever you want. Just be creative. I mean, I guess really at the end of the day, that's the important thing that we're crafting for. One is just an expression of our creativity, just an outlet from everyday life. This is our time to just unplug, sit back. It's all about us. It's all about our enjoyment. We're concentrating on it and just letting that inner child, like when you're a kid, just sitting down with a coloring book and a pack of crayons. Well, now that we're older, we can afford better paper and better coloring materials. So we definitely, is great to have time to sit down, just let that creativity flow, and just, I mean, really just being an outlet for you, just as a stress reliever. I know that I'm currently always building something with cosplay, but since I've taken a break, I need to have that creative outlet. It's something that I crave. I like creating stuff, so I'm always looking for something I can make. So I'm going to soon be starting on some coloring pencils, and I have a class that I have, and I'm looking forward to that and learning how to do that and trying to master that skill to hopefully bring you a different medium of coloring in addition to Sandy's Copics. So that's all I have for tonight. I definitely appreciate you coming to my live, and Sandy will be back on Tuesday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. So until then, have a great weekend. Bye.